The old man. The old man said, "Greetings, Stiganda." It had been a long time since a traveller had heard the name used. It was the name his companions had given him almost 150 years before when they learned he was to leave. "Father, I had not expected to see you now. I shall soon be heading north to find you there." The traveller paused, and the old man waited, watching him from beneath the sun and rain-beaten brim of his hat. The traveller continued, "But I recall, years ago, in the valley of the mountains, you told me of a riverhead. Is this that river? Is it here in this valley that I shall find your sacrifice?" "My son, you shall meet me in the north, but before you go, speak with me. You now know Kieran, and soon his mother and sister. They await you." The traveller responded, "I know the dream. I have remembered. The dream is what led me to find you here." The old man continued, "The water of this valley bathes two towns, first that of Sarah and Juliet, and later that of Kieran. You have understood why I favored Kieran, despite his darkness. He is under my protection." The traveller thought of the river that passed through the gardens of the Guild Town's ancient sea fort. "I have to ask, as to Kieran, he has done your bidding. Should you not leave him now?" "No, my son. I must account for the consequences of my touch. My actions must not confuse the truth of Kieran's existence. He must have the chance for the redemption that he would have had without my interference. Suffering by me must be reconciled. I hurt Kieran, but I needed his sister and his twins, so I have repaid him through my favor. He suffers now only as he would have done. His wife relieves him of the pain I caused." The traveller responded quietly, "His wife, Gwennayan. Her name speaks to me of you as I piece together the picture I now see of your plans. Yet sometimes it seems we delay. I travel and know little, but then learn of matters that concern me through the voices of men." The old man's grim eye followed the birds in the sky. "You must realize what it is to know little, for that is man's plight. By tasting blindness, you shall be sensitive to blindness. Only then may you understand man. Only then may you correctly determine the line to be drawn between life and death. You felt for Kieran, comprehended his confusion, realized a measure of his experience. While he is astute, he lives in ignorance. Yet while knowing far more than he, you, too, know but little." The traveller spoke. "I have been searching for what I have missed in man, in the tears streaming from his eyes, in his face when lit with joy. I have seen his decisions shift with the passing of these moods. I realize this is the part of man our books could never teach. It is not that I do not feel, I do, but not in the way man does. His feelings elude me, they seem ever unmoored." The old man responded, "Kieran is a part of you as you are a part of me. Like him, you must act on the basis of what you know. Some things are given at birth, others are learned in life. If I gave you everything, your purpose would cease." The traveller had been watching the horses. Melior was a proud animal, and the traveller had never known his equal. There was but one that was greater, and that was Kieran, who had carried Melior, who had given him his life. The old man in stillness continued, "It shall seem as though we walk in the path of darkness, without empathy or understanding, but it is not so. We must always remain within the will of light, and you shall choose how to balance life with death. How should a man like Kieran be treated? Should I let him die in the darkness of his blood? I was entrusted with the host to lead against his kind. No, the path to Kieran must be true. I may interfere only if I compensate." The old man paused. Ravens had risen from the walls of the valley. They circled and shrieked. The old man lifted his head, watched their flight. "Kieran." The grey voice had merely whispered, but then the old man closed his eyes and sat for some moments in silence. The ravens, still agitated above, soon settled, and the old man continued. "Although all is as it must be, all is not always as it should be. We are not all that interferes. We counter the actions of another. That is our reason for being. You see how men worship. They look to gods, to saints and deities, to each other, to that which is dear, that which promises to allay a seemingly never-ending fear. Where do you look? To me and to your mother. You know that to which you look. Man knows nothing. Images are set before him, but he knows nothing of their origin. I am worshipped as serpent slayer, and yet were I to stand before man in that form, I would terrify. No veneer keeps God's eye, and much of what man believes shall prove to be distraction. I can see the truth, and so shall you. When your hammer strikes, man will be judged on far more than his adherence to blind ritual. Man takes refuge in a forgiving God. That is his distraction. But God is not forgiving. God forgives wrong to the extent right is accomplished. Thus he who dies finds his place, and false comforts offered by my shadow's hand shall be exposed in the true light of death. However, within ambivalence is fairness. Fairness requires each to ever find his place. That is why Kieran knows my favor now, to give back what I took from him. Now he knows the sorrow of his decisions, not the sorrow of mine. What of his sons? Do they not now bear the sorrow of our creation? What will keep them from that? In them we have crafted a darkness. Their darkness is not theirs, and not ours, and yet we control it. They shall live, serve, and die. We are not concerned with them. We are concerned with their service. We shall use what they shall create. Those who follow them, that which grows from them. Kieran shall be the extent of my compensation. Those who follow him would have found darkness elsewhere. Kieran's mother will tell you of her past, and of her daughter. I needed her daughter, just as I needed Kieran. The daughter will produce twins unlike their cousins. It was for those twins that I gave a daughter to Kieran's mother. And what of her husband, Alan? What of the change to his life? Must you not compensate him? Kieran's mother knew peace through Alan's steadiness. He was graced as the husband of the mother of my daughter. But he was chosen for the likeness he held. He knew nothing of the girl's origin. He married a widow and became a father. Remember, traveller, I draw life to light by casting back darkness. That is all I did with Alan. By casting darkness back, I drew his life forward. Along with the grace Alan received, he suffered. He lived with pain as well as joy. He raised a girl who was not his. He supported a life that was beyond comprehension. He shouldered his wife's burdens, as well as those of her lost husband, her lost son, and those of a strange child. He is one of the reasons Sarah was chosen. He could play that role. He knew wonder and love, but also the confusion of matters far beyond him. And he did so without complaint. What he gained was balanced by the burden he bore. Kieran never had that balance until now. Instead, Kieran lost and then lost more. The investments may have seemed to be benefits, but they were not. They fueled his darkness. They gave him the opportunity to do as he wished, to explore his darkness without constraint. Now he has recovered some of his losses. Of the mother and sister, is there any instruction that you would give me for my meeting with them? The town where they live is Riverton. The sister is Juliet, whom you met on the moor. She is mine and would not exist but for me. Soon she shall be yours. Bid her to join you once her mother is once again in my arms. You say the sister shall be mine, that you gave her for her twins. Are you saying that Juliet's twins will be mine? They will. Now take your time to observe Riverton. Sarah shall know you, and you shall know her. When you have spoken to her and to Juliet, ride north and find the Valley of the Springs. Wait for Juliet there. When she arrives, consummate your marriage under the eyes of the King and Queen of the Wood. Bear your children, then join me in the Valley of the Mountains. Juliet will accept this path, the unfolding of a long dream that would always be. She is your wife, traveller, and your children shall parent man anew. The old man rose as Kieran approached. He mounted and looked down at the traveller. Follow this stream to the fall. Leolfa shall show you a path. Find my sacrifice, my gift for Juliet, long fed with the sound of water. By that gift she shall know you as her husband. The old man spurred Kieran forward. The wolves loped alongside, with strides as long as those of the great grey horse. 1,000 ravens, black as night, from shadowy perches swept, north and over the hills, east and west. The old man was gone. Following Leolfer's lead, they rode to the crest of the fall. Where the old man had passed, a low cloud now hung to muffle the sound of the water, already distant with the long drop to the base. The traveller dismounted and followed Leolfer. The ground fell away sharply, and the rocks and grass were wet and slippery. Leolfer, choosing certain stones, marked the traveller's way. At times he clawed at the soil and grass to unmask stone beneath. Switching steeply back and forth in direction, they were eventually a third of the way down, and the Ulfa headed straight for the never-ending roar of the water. The traveler could see where they headed. Behind the fall, a deep, cave-like platform was invisible from above or below. Cutting across and behind the falling water, they entered a space of bare stone where, from the middle of the floor, a single rock stood. The rock narrowed into the graceful torso and neck of a woman, and from its neck was hung a gemstone on a silver cord. The gem was only just larger than a walnut and had the appearance of ice. Its depth was deceiving. It was almost flat, like a sphere gently pressed and frozen, with an interior of shining inclusions in a space of infinite depth. Each inclusion reflected and amplified the waterfall's light. The traveler lifted the necklace from the stone. Its cord, woven from strands of silvery white hair, hung with the fluidity of the stream. He recognized the strands. They were of his father's hair, and though he had never before seen the stone, he knew it well. It was his father's eye, infused with constancy, the sight and sound of flowing water. Looking into the heart of the stone, the traveler's eyes closed. He passed through a glade of transparent shifting rods of light and felt himself weightless. Opening his eyes, he placed the necklace in a leather pouch at his belt, passed through the fall again, and climbed the steep grassy hillside to Melior. The landscape quickly changed. Falling, the river passed through the woodlands that covered the steep sides of the valley. The scent of wild garlic, disturbed by moving feet, rose up around them. After a time, as the valley leveled, the river slowed and broadened in a great green dale. In slow, rambling curves, pools formed and swans swam between lichen-covered trees. It had recently rained. Droplets from tree limbs steadily fell into the water to send ripples from their point of entry, an infinity of expanding circles overlapped by an infinity of others. The traveler knew the town he sought lay within this long dale, this wide green lushness of fielded valley where the river sparkled along its eastward way.